Greetings and welcome to NAI Global's House Biz podcast. I'm your host, Gary Marsh. Today's guest is Todd Hubbard with NAI Robert Lynn in the Fort Worth office. Welcome, Todd.
Thank you for having me, Gary.
You bet. And I should mention Todd's an SIOR. We always put those designations immediately following a person's name in writing, and we will talk about SIOR later in the podcast, but that's good to know. So let's just jump right in. Todd, you're one of the top 10 producers from 2022 with NAI Global. Congratulations on that note. And for listeners, we should note with some 5,000 agents worldwide, this is a heck of an accomplishment. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
We'll get into your special sauce later also. But first, let's just talk about your business. You're a player coach. You're obviously a broker. But you're also the managing principal in the NAI Robert Lynn Fort Worth office. So kind of tell me how you balance your time between managing and producing. And I know it's not a 40-hour week for you based on that.
No, that is the trick for sure. So, really it's all about time management because it is the way our company is set up. Other than George Dutter, who I think we'll talk about in a minute, but everyone is a player coach. And I've had the opportunity to open our Fort Worth office many years ago, and we've grown it. And, I also do a lot of business. So it's just really the big thing is management of time. And you're right, there are no 40-hour weeks and you can never escape it. So those are the things that happen when you do this, but I love it because that gives me opportunity to train young agents, manage our existing agents, and also talk strategy about company and helping to grow our firm. So it's been fun for me to wear both hats for sure.
Right on. Well, you've been a top producer on more than one occasion in recent years. But tell us about the size of the office. How many agents do you have at Robert Lynn, and are there other services? Do you have a property management unit or anything like that?
We do. So as our company this year, we hit a milestone over 100 employees. So that's big. And of those, we have about 65 agents in both our Dallas and Fort Worth offices. So our Fort Worth office, we're at 16. And so Dallas is obviously a much larger market and much larger office, but we offer property management. We also specialize in office, retail, industrial, and then capital markets. So that's kind of our core business as a company for NAI Robert Lynn. We do that out of both offices.
All the four major food groups, as we say.
Yes, sir.
So you mentioned George. That's George Dutter, and there's also a gentleman in your office, or your business, Mark Miller. Is it the three of you that run the company? And if so, maybe talk about the division of duties.
Yeah, so George Dutter is our he's our secret sauce as a company because he's our CEO. He runs the day-to-day operations for sure. And he's a non-agent. He's the only one that's not a player coach. And that gives us a lot of competitive advantages because he can focus on strategy. And, he's one of the smartest guys I know. So it's been a pleasure to work with him. And then Mark is kind of the ultimate player coach, and Mark's been our top producer for many years. He and I have kind of slugged it out, but Mark sets the tone and the example for all of our agents and how to conduct himself in the business, and just he's a great role model for everyone. But yeah, fortunately for me, at the end of 2020, they approached me and asked me to help them in strategy and helping to kind of run the company, so to speak. So the way we divide it really is George is the day-to-day operations, and then Mark and I work together with George on strategy, personnel decisions, and just trying to figure out how we can improve the company. So Mark and I both player coaches, George runs it, and then we just communicate together. And then we've got a group of principals at the company that also help on major decisions and kind of helping to guide company direction.
And are they formally like an executive committee? And if so, approximately how many persons are there?
I believe we have 12 now, and it's basically, we meet at least once a month, and then we have some that are just kind of meetings to go over the key things that are going on in the company. And then we have a couple of strategy sessions a year where we're kind of digging deeper, spending more time. And so with that, we'll have company initiatives that we all work on. And so each principal will kind of tackle an initiative with a group that they pick within the company to help kind of guide that. So it does allow us to have a little bit more bandwidth, where before, in previous years, George was trying to do everything. And as we've grown as a company, it's just not, he doesn't have the bandwidth. So it's really been a great platform for our company and help guide our growth.
That's good to know. And it's also good to know the size. For a lot of listeners, Dallas, of course, is a large market. We know the last few years that there's been a ton of industrial development there. The city's been growing east, west, north, south. The metroplex size is bigger than ever. But your firm itself, Todd, with the size and the production, you must be competing toe to toe with the nationals in your market.
Yeah, we are. We've been very fortunate. So I think if you come to the Dallas-Fort Worth market, we are a big name in the market. I think transactionally, I think we're in the top 3 for sure in transactional kind of volume within the DFW market. So yeah, we've been fortunate to continue to grow in all facets and are a major player in both Dallas and Fort Worth.
All right, so that my suspicion was confirmed. Thank you for that. Let's go back to you. You started your career as an accountant with a fiber optics manufacturing company. Was that there in the Fort Worth, Dallas area? And are you a product of Texas, a native son?
I am. I'm from a small town in central Texas called Brownwood. Most people haven't heard of it, but I've got my MBA from Texas Tech, and due to life circumstances, I went back to Brownwood and worked as an accountant, not necessarily by choice. So, but it was just doing what I had to do at the time. So, as I was there, I did have the opportunity to come to, at that time, it was Lynn Company, and they had an opening in Fort Worth, and I didn't know what commercial real estate was. I didn't know what a dock door was. I didn't know anything, but I did know that the people there were special. And I felt like if I surrounded myself with talented people, it would give me an opportunity to grow both as a businessman and as a person. And that turned out to be, the best decision of my career, and led me to really good places. And my wife was actually an intern there when I started. So found my wife through the company as well. So I owe a lot to NAI Robert Lynn, that's for sure.
Well, that's the ultimate win-win there. So you must have been in your 20s, and that's we all have different ways that we ended up in this industry. We've said it before on this podcast, and it's widely known. Most people in commercial real estate, we stumbled into our careers. And it's worked out for a lot of us. So, well, good for you. How has your experience, even if it was brief, as an accountant and your MBA, how's that helped you as a broker?
I think it's more than anything, just, being a broker is not brain surgery, as you know, but there are, when you get into detailed deal specifics, having that background and being able to really understand the economics and the math and just trying to put everything together, it has been very valuable to have that knowledge. And I think it gives me an advantage in some capacities, just because I can dig pretty deep and really understand financials. And I think that's very core to our business. And I tell, our young agents that, hey, take CCIM classes, or it's so fundamental if you want to elevate your career, to really be able to sit down and talk to CFOs and help them understand that you kind of know what you're talking about. And I think that just adds value and it adds trust when you're working with larger tenants and companies across the market.
Absolutely. And we know from just being in business for so many years, the higher up the food chain you go in terms of the executive position, the less patient they are with the people they talk to. If they know you don't know their business, they don't want to be spending time with you.
That's right.
And so that's good that you have that personal experience and that you're encouraging it with your young agents. That's spot on. So good for you. Your practice itself, Todd, do you do a lot of industrial, a lot of capital markets? Is it weighted one way or the other?
Yeah, my primary core business is industrial in Fort Worth. And so I've been able to build a team here where I think we're one of the top industrial groups in Fort Worth for sure. But as a result, and this, when you have a client that has an office need or something, I'll do those types of deals from time to time. But my everyday business is industrial.
Got it. Let's talk about some of your success transactions from this year, since again, you're a top 10 producer. What were some of the deals you and your team did? First of all, tell us what the size of your team is, and then talk about some of the deals. If you're able to mention the client names, fine. If not, that's understandable. And certainly the terms and maybe a unique challenge. I mean, the industrial market, as you know better than me, has been red hot. So in some respects, you could say, oh, your job's been pretty easy. I'm sure that's not the case. So maybe talk about some of your deals and some of the challenges and how you overcame them.
Yeah, so I have a 4-person team, and this year we do a lot of transactions, I would say. So we're high volume. We did this year, 2022 year to date, our 4-person team's done about 240 transactions. So we've done a lot of deals, but we've had a few that I can kind of highlight, I think speak to the market a lot. And one particular deal is a Sylvania Industrial Park. It was an old 980,000 square foot metal building facility with crane served. And what the buyer came in, acquired it, and we've really been able to add value by taking a really good core location, good product that was poorly managed, and take that and really revive it. So that's been rewarding because it is in the center part of the city. And this year, I think we've done 8 deals in that part, over 500,000 square feet, and just really taken a kind of an eyesore in the city and turned it into a gem. And so it's been fun to be part of that transformation. And just our clients been so great about listening to what our thoughts were and really executing on that. So it's rewarding to see that our thoughts and what we had hoped would happen comes to fruition for the client. So that was a fun one. And then we had a couple of project listings where, we were able to get those deals pre-leased before they broke ground or finalized. They were after they broke ground, but they were before they were shell complete. So we worked with East Group and Brookfield Properties on those, and those were good, just core locations that we were able to get done. And then one other one, I think too, just going to kind of manufacturing, was taking a really, really hot market. Alliance is probably the premier industrial park in the country. Had a client that was captive in their building. They couldn't move because of the cost to do so, and we're able to go in and help negotiate for them to buy the facility and the adjacent lot so they can expand and really control their own destiny. Those were some of the highlights of the year. We've been blessed and fortunate to do a number of deals, but those are the ones that were kind of most rewarding for our team.
Congratulations on those. And it sounds like it's they're all each just good old fashioned combinations of creative brokerage and hard work.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, some of these deals where, when you can create a deal and then that turns into other deals just by thinking outside the box, those are the most rewarding. So anytime we do that, we do a lot of off-market deals as a team, which I think adds a tremendous amount of value in the marketplace, just because we're doing things that aren't on CoStar that anybody could do. We're creating deals based on our knowledge and relationships in the marketplace, and that's what we take a lot of pride in.
As you should. Again, you're creating value for your clients too along the way, right? Which is the essence of the business that you're in.
That's right.
Very good. Well, for listeners that aren't familiar with the Dallas-Fort Worth area, as we said earlier in the podcast, it's a huge market. What are some of the differences between your markets? I mean, obviously Fort Worth's the smaller of the two, and you're what, 40 minutes apart or thereabout on a normal traffic route due west of Dallas. So what kind of makes your market more unique to Dallas, and how do they interact?
It's changed a lot. So there's been a huge evolution as the markets, both markets have become more institutional. There's been a lot of corporate relocations that I'm sure you guys have seen and read about. They've started to blend more, but there is really a unique kind of culture within each market. Fort Worth's got more of a small town feel, but the Dallas people would tell you that it's a sleepy market, but that's no longer the case. Now, Fort Worth is a very dynamic market. It's now the 12th largest population in the country on its own. And I think it's the second fastest growing city in the country of a population of over 500,000. So, they're both very unique and have their benefits but it's amazing as what we call the Metroplex has grown. It's just become really one big core community. And now, for example, we would have division between the economic development groups where they would compete with one another, and they all banded together a few years ago and said, hey, let's quit competing against one another and let's try to bring industry to DFW. And that's been a game changer. So I think there's a much more cooperative environment between the markets, and it's just really helped create the momentum that we're seeing today with the growth of both Dallas and Fort Worth.
All right, so shifting back to your SIR designation, when did you earn the designation?
2009. And it's been great. Just to me, the biggest thing that's helped me in my business with being an SIR is just really that it gives credibility when you're calling on national decision makers. I think for the more sophisticated real estate groups, it's almost a prerequisite. And so that designation has been very beneficial to me over the years, just with really that credibility that it gives.
All right, Todd, this is the part of the podcast I want you to check your modesty at the door for a minute, and then we'll bring it back. What's been your secret sauce for becoming a top performer? This year was no fluke. Like I said earlier, you've had a number of really good years and recognized as a top producer in the Dallas-Fort Worth market. How do you do it? How do you do it year after year? What drives you? Why do you succeed this way?
Yeah, it's ironically, I did a training for our Dallas and Fort Worth brokers in December of this year and kind of went through this exact question. And I think the key for me, I think everything starts and kind of ends with mindset. I think in our business, there's so many. Every day you win, you lose, you get your teeth kicked in, you feel great. It's just really a bipolar type of industry. So you have to be strong-minded and really just stay neutral with your mindset. If you can't do that, it's a real challenge. So we try to preach that a lot, just trying to keep emotions at a very kind of neutral level and just executing for your clients. And then you get into the keys, which to me are responsiveness. I think that's so critical. I mean, we're in a service-oriented business, and if you're not being responsive, you're failing your clients and customers. And I think that's an easy thing that everyone can control. And then, just going through controlling the deal, being an efficient and effective communicator, adapting your business. One of the things too is just listening and not talking. And I think that's just sales 101. I think people have a tendency to want to go in and talk and talk and talk, and they're missing so many key things that the client's trying to say. So we try to preach, you got to listen and just be quiet. And then, the other things are, you got to have systems in place. When you start doing a high level of transactions, if you don't have a good system, you're going to drown pretty quickly. And then, being a professional at all times. Mark Miller is the best example for our office of just always being a pro, always having good deliverables for the client, dressing right, just being a pro. And I've been so fortunate to learn from him. And then really just being prepared. I always tell everyone, if you don't come in the next day prepared with your tasks for the day, then you've failed yourself. And, those are the things. But I think the biggest thing is just being nice and loving what you do. And I think those are just differentiators that seem so simple, but people miss the boat on it. So I love talking about it. I'm passionate about talking about the things that have helped me along the way. And so many of them seem simple, but people don't execute them. They don't take them seriously. So it's a great thing when you can be around people that help you improve. And if you aren't a sponge and don't soak that up, then you're just failing yourself. So I preach on that often. And luckily we've got a great group of folks that learn from one another.
That's great stuff, Todd. Well said, and so spot on with everything you said, really. I mean, we could probably dedicate just a one-page, the world's shortest white paper on Sales 101, just based on what you said, because it's so true. I mean, and, there's so many realities that it's the most obvious thing ever, that people like to do business with people they like. And if you're also happen to be good at what you do, then you're going to have plenty of business. That is a basic, but I loved what you said about listening. My earliest career was in outside commercial commission sales. This show is not about me, but I do have a degree in journalism. It was later that I fell back to journalism, i.e. the 1990 recession is what killed my commission sales. At that time, that was a tough time. But anyway, one of my teachers taught me, you have two ears and one mouth, use them proportionally.
Amen to that. That is a truth. And it is amazing how many people don't do that. And then I think the other thing is just understanding that you, and I've said this too before to many of our agents, you are the client experience. And so I always equate it to, if you go out to a restaurant and you can have the best steak they've ever made, but if your waiter gives you poor service, you get into the car, you're not talking about how great that steak is, you're talking about how bad the service is. And I think that is what we do. We are service providers, and it's easy for people to forget that. And that's the thing that you have to reiterate and really think about when you're interacting with the client, that everything you're doing is their experience with you. And so it kind of goes to the same thing, equating the steak to a deal. You may not negotiate the greatest deal for your client, but if they feel really good about it, then you've won. But some people get so caught up in trying to get the best deal, or that they forget about that interaction and the experience. And I think that's so key and critical to taking the next step in your career, is just understanding that dynamic.
Absolutely. And I love it. You just revealed yourself to be a true Texan, as if there was any doubt, because you use steak as the metaphor versus takeout sushi or something like that.
Yeah, I would get killed if I'd have done that, for sure.
We love it. Well, let's talk about the career development piece, especially since I now know that you have a team and you do hire and train agents. And again, with my background with the SIOR Foundation, which part of our task is to develop the next generation of people in the commercial real estate industry, including some diversity people. I always like to ask this question. If you were to meet a high school senior or a freshman or sophomore in college, a person that hasn't identified a career path, what would you say to him or her about careers in commercial real estate?
I would say it's the most challenging, but yet rewarding thing you can do. But I think for me, it's more about the fit. Like, I don't think everyone's meant to do that. It's not for everyone. We do the caliper test for all of our hires, just to what I want for any of those is find what you love. And if it happens to be commercial real estate, then do it because you love it, because it's not a career that you just put your foot in the water and see how it feels. You got to dive in head first. I mean, it takes a while to make money. There's a long lead time. And if you go in and do it for a couple of years and then don't stick with it, then you've wasted time. So I think, to me, it's like, educate yourself on what it is, make sure it's something that you want to do. And if it is, then go talk to as many people as you can and intern. And I always appreciate the hustle of the college student that calls, that wants to do an internship. I think that's a great platform to get into the business and understand it. And so we've got a really good intern program here that has been headed up by one of our principals, Michael Newsom. And honestly, if that's such a easy way into the company, because if you come in and work hard, then we're going to want to keep you. And so I think that's a great path for folks to take if it is the business that you want to do.
Very well, and I'm glad to hear you do have an internship program. And you're right. That's as an industry, it's not for the faint of heart. It takes a little more commitment than your average career job, especially for a young person. It's a tall ask if you think about it, because we're all pretty immature, when we were 22, 23, 24. So it's a tall ask. It's not for everybody, like you said. Well, let's wrap up with a little crystal balling. The last few years have been crazy, crazy good. If you've been in the game, and I know you and your team have, we're in the middle of a dynamic time with interest rates spiking more quickly than it has since the early 80s. What are you guys seeing? What do you kind of expect for 2023?
We're setting our company goal, I think, next week for kind of 2023. And I think the consensus is, our goal is not going to be equivalent to what we've been able to do the last couple of years. I think you have to be realistic and see the writing on the wall. However, I do think that there are plenty of opportunities. I think for Dallas-Fort Worth, I think we're a little bit insulated just from population growth. I think as populations grow, it does create demand for warehouse space, retail. We're starting to see especially down here in Texas, and I don't know how it is across the rest of the country, we're starting to see more and more office tenants bringing their people back into the office, which I think has helped us tremendously in our office division this year in 2022. I think we're going to see more of that in 2023. I think companies are starting to see that it's hard to keep a culture together when their workers are not together. And so I think that's going to create an opportunity. But we expect that there are going to be challenges, specifically in the capital markets. We've already seen that. And I think that is going to lead to some challenges that, quite frankly, we haven't seen in a while. So we're optimistic. I think things are going to be fine. Leasing activities continue to be strong. User sale demand is still very, very high. And prices are holding for the most part. Obviously, cap rates are not, but on owner user sales, they're still holding values. So we expect a little bit of a dip next year. And I think the key for us is making sure that that's just a little dip and not something major, which we don't expect.
Very well. Well, everyone's talking about it, and I always make the analogy. It's like going 90 miles an hour on an open road, and all of a sudden there's a little traffic and you're going 60 and it feels like you're crawling.
That's a great way to say it. I mean, the reality of what we've all experienced is it was not sustainable. And so you knew that. And I think you just knew at some point things were going to change. And, it's hard for the younger agents because they haven't experienced the tough times. And I think, they're going to have to really buckle down and get back to the fundamentals. And I think we all are. And it gives us an opportunity to reset, get our systems better and to get your plan in place, because even in a down market, there are tons of opportunities and you just have to find where those opportunities lie.
That's right. Transactions happen in any cycle. It's the flat ones that we all don't like.
Exactly.
So, well, that really does conclude our main podcast, if you will. So Todd Hubbard with NEI, Robert Lynn, again, thank you for speaking with us. And I always like to provide listeners with a direct line for them to reach you if, in fact, they do want to call you, certainly on a transaction. Make it easy so they don't have to look it up. What's the best number to reach you on, Todd?
Cell phone's always best for me, and it's 817-501-2012.
817-501-2012.
Yes, sir.
All right, right on. Well, Todd Hubbard, thank you again.
You bet.
Now let's talk about the expansion to Houston. Some exciting news that we'll be announcing collectively, certainly out of the Robert Lynn office there in Dallas, in Houston. But the company's taking over the Houston market that was vacated at the end of this year. So that's big news. You and your leadership team must be thrilled about that.
We are. I mean, if you just kind of look at Texas and see, that you have an opportunity to go into the kind of largest population center in the state that's been growing so fast. We're super excited about the opportunity to go into that market. And we think there's a ton of potential for us to kind of use our platform to really grow in that market quickly and substantially.
That's right. Houston's the fourth largest city in America?
Yeah, it is. And it's growing tremendously on both north, south, and really on the west side. It's growing greatly. So we're excited about the growth too.
Well, especially with the port there. And as you've seen news, as everybody has, that some of the West Coast traffic has been being diverted to other ports, East Coast and Gulf ports, and that certainly includes Houston. So cargo traffic is up substantially, which just makes a thriving industrial market a booming one. How will the integration with a Houston location help your Dallas-Fort Worth clients and vice versa?
I think it's just going to be, there are so many companies that have offices in both markets. And I think just being able to kind of have that seamless ability to communicate is going to be great. And I think really the big thing is just giving clients the opportunity to use our platform that we've been so successful with here in DFW in that market as well. So we're excited both on the leasing and tenant rep side that it's going to be a pretty seamless integration between the three offices.
Excellent. And then from a management perspective, Todd, I'm going to guess George has taken the lead as the CEO. Is that correct?
That is correct. We did. So what we've done to this point, I think, is the plan. We have a committee of about 7 principals that are working toward really trying to take the lead on finding the right partners in Houston. So we are going to be hiring for leaders in that market. We are not going to be having anyone transplant there from our existing office. So we have that committee that's actively, talking to, the top agents in Houston to try to find the right fit. And I think really for us, it's about culture and also just trying to find culture and production fits. And then also, we do business in a way that we have geographic kind of territories within the market. And so we want to take that same kind of principled approach toward territorial market knowledge and apply it there. So we need to find the right leaders that are on board with that program.
That's excellent. That's a good plan. I will attest to the integrity of the plan. You know this as well or better than me since you do it. But when I first started consulting after leaving the media, I worked for a company in Silicon Valley. I won't name them, but they were a private company at the time. They've rolled up into one of the nationals, but this was Silicon Valley, and they carved out the county into 13 submarkets, and they had 2 or 3 people per submarket. And that's why they were #1 in Silicon Valley, because they had truly boots on the ground experts in each submarket. And whereas other companies were just kind of going all over the place. So it's an effective way to run a business. So congratulations, you guys are doing it.
Yeah. So we want that same approach there. So I think that George will still be the ultimate CEO of both the 3 offices. I think Mark Miller and I will probably make, routine visits down to Houston to kind of help with whoever we end up partnering with to lead that office. And we'll work with them to help kind of keep the culture in place. I think that's one of our challenges is, it is a pretty decent geographic distance. So you have to try to figure out, mechanisms to try to take that culture and keep it cohesive with what we've established in Dallas and Fort Worth. And I think most of that's going to come down to finding the right partners there, but we're excited about it. I think it's a very logical step for our company. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to kind of build ourselves within the NAI network. And, we're excited to get going on it in 2023.
Well, again, congratulations on that move. And yes, speaking with NEI Global CEO Jay Oshansky, he and I were talking about this move, and it's testament to the strength and value of NEI Global as a platform that you want to expand within your own state, because you've obviously seen some value in Dallas and Fort Worth. So I think it's a healthy thing for everybody. Well, Todd Hubbard, again, thank you for speaking with us. This has been a great podcast, and have a happy new year.
Gary, thanks, man. Appreciate you very much.
You bet.